6 o'clock, folks. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday, June 17th, 2025, City Council meeting. We have 6 out of 7 councilors present tonight. Wish you could join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you. Getting underway for our public hearing. Agenda item number 1 is to schedule a public hearing for Ordinance Chapter 3, Council Procedure. Chairman Eiler, would you like to introduce this to us? Not Chairman, City Council. My goodness.
Pick a title.
Bear with me. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. Okay. City Manager Eiler.
Thank you.
Would you like to introduce this for us, please?
I certainly will, Chairman.
For
no offense taken.
Goodness.
So, councilors, before you is the Chapter 3 Council Procedure Ordinance. You will recall that we were concerned with Section 4 voting. If this verbiage works for you this evening, you can sign this into law this evening. If we are still working on this, which is okay, it's important and it takes time, then we can place this on the July 2nd council meeting for final approval and as a public hearing.
So have the suggested changes to this council procedure ordinance, have the changes all been made, or do we have more stuff here that's still in question on this that has yet to be?
I'm satisfied, and our attorney is satisfied, that this ordinance says what it needs to say and defines what it needs to define.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I would note one typo on page 1 of Chapter 3 under Section 4 voting. The last paragraph below the bullet points. In the event that the full council is not present at the time of vote, any requirement for a 2/3 vote shall still require no fewer than 4, but the number in parentheses is 5.
Okay.
So that number should be changed to 4 affirmative votes to pass. That's the only notation that I see at this time.
Very well.
So I guess the only thing I'll say is the reason this in-depth look at the city council ordinances procedure has come up was because it doesn't match our charter. Our charter just says majority, 2/3, or unanimous. I think there might have been some wisdom in the city council procedures ordinance to try to say that you need at least 5 people to pass a budget. I think what we need to think about now is there's fewer and fewer people running for council, and we could someday get into a scenario where there's only 5 or 6 of us here. And do we want to set a specific number, or just let Robert's Rules of Order say what majority, 2/3, and unanimous is?
Well, I guess I would run with Robert's rules, because as I'm looking under Section 4, the second bullet point, 2/3 vote shall also mean no fewer than 4. 2/3 vote means 5 or.
Well, it depends on how many are seated, right?
Right, but that explanation is down further.
Mm-hmm.
So this one here should be, if we have all 7 counselors, then obviously we would need 5 votes.
Right. And
Yes.
I think what Mike was saying is that if we don't put any numbers in and we say a majority is defined by Robert's rules as a majority of the people that are right,
But
and
there's
then
some that are
2/3 is defined, obviously 2/3.
Right.
And so it's already kind of defined if we do that, but it doesn't pigeonhole us into this, depending on if we have a situation like we just had with someone that passes away or something like that.
Right, and that's fine. I mean, I understand that, but you still have to have the definition for a supermajority and a simple majority.
It's defined in Robert's Rules of Orders, like.
Yeah, well, that was topic of discussion when this first came about.
Well, I mean, it was, but we had a city council ordinance that said 2/3 was 5. So
Yeah,
which with 6 councilors, 2/3 is not 5, it's 4.
right, yeah, no, I get that part. 6
So-
is 2/3. Yeah,
So I think Mike has something, actually, kind of as we've thought about it a little more, I think he has something that makes some sense, because 2/3 is definitely a defined term, majority is definitely a defined term. And then, based on the seated council at that moment, you know, if someone died right before, or if someone resigned or left or moved or whatever was removed for whatever reason, then we haven't pigeonholed an exact number that may not apply at that point in time just because of the dynamics of what has occurred, right?
yeah,
And then we don't have it written majority here and then a number over here, it's just defined. But I'd be okay with tabling it until the July vote and to have a final version if we wanna do that too, I mean, that's,
mhm.
So you're thinking just do away with the number called out altogether and just go as 2/3
I think-
or majority?
I think that's what you're saying, Mike, right?
That would be what I'm saying, unless the will of the council is to set a certain minimum number for supermajority. It's just we have to understand that if we do so and, you know, we're running with less than a full council, that could mean a vote that would normally pass with, you know, a certain number of votes needs a unanimous vote, or we could even get into a scenario where this writes that it requires more votes than there actually are for councilors.
Right, but I mean, even with that, I mean, a 2/3 majority, there's only certain things that you need that particular vote for.
But you need it for the budget,
Yeah.
so, and that's something that happens every year.
Hmm.
And, I mean, if we set a certain number and for some reason it's budget time and there's only 5 councilors, that could make it challenging to pass a budget.
Mm.
Or we have the same questions asked like we've had this time because of having one thing not align with the other, right?
Hmm.
So after Mike kind of explained it to me, I said, yeah, I guess I understand that, and I don't disagree, I guess.
Well, and I think it would basically just be the way it was before. It is the declared intent of the city council that official business of the city council shall be by majority rule of the council.
Mhm.
References in the Presque City Charter for the motion, resolve, order, and ordinances to pass shall be interpreted as majority, 2/3, and unanimous. And we would just leave out the definition for each. And then the quorum still says there needs to be at least 4 people.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that makes, you know, so there's at least gonna be 4 counselors.
Yeah.
I mean, City Manager Eiler, I mean, do you have thoughts? I mean, you've worked on this more than any of us. I'm just kinda seeing by having distinct numbers, it still creates, a difference from the charter.
We've worked this a number of different ways in trying to define some of the things in here. It simplifies it in a beautiful way, the way you've presented it this evening, so I would absolutely agree with that.
Harold, your thoughts? Good.
Yeah,
Have you found anything
well, I'm just
yet?
looking to see if there is actually a definition in Robert's rules, and I'm not actually
You're not finding it in there?
seeing it here,
Okay.
but that's not, I mean, that's not to say it's not in here, it might just be in a different section. So, I think it would make sense to me to table it for a rewrite based on Mike's recommendation with the possible inclusion of language. If it's defined in Robert's rules, then that makes sense as inconsistent with the charter. because this is the rule book by which we operate, it
Mhm.
feels like that would make a lot of sense and be consistent, so.
Okay. So, can I make a motion to table it to July?
Yes, please.
Would it be a table though, or would it be to amend?
Schedule a
hearing.
public
Schedule,
hearing.
okay,
Yeah.
so, okay, so I'll rephrase that. So I move that we schedule a further public session and, hearing on this council procedures ordinance for the next regular meeting in July.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor by Craig and seconded by Mike. All of those in favor? 6-0, motion carries. Okay,
Maybe that will.
on to item number 2 of our public hearing is to approve ordinance, chapter 40, conduct in parks. Actually, before we dive into this, does it break protocol if I take a minute to make an announcement that I should have made prior to item number 1? Can I
No.
do that?
Please go ahead.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that the city of Presque has hired a new city manager. Sonia Eiler has been our interim city manager for, oh my goodness, a few months now, and has done a wonderful job at taking over the helm. And we went through a fairly extensive interviewing process with multiple candidates, and we all felt that she performed the best and was the right person for the job, and we hired Sonia Eiler to be our new city manager for the city of Presque. Sonia, welcome, and I wish you the best of luck, and this is going to be some exciting times. Looking forward to working with you.
I look forward to serving the citizens of Presque Isle and working with all of you to make our city the best that it absolutely can be.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
My apologies for not taking care of that first and foremost, but I guess I must have gotten used to this here for the past few meetings. So anyhow, welcome. And
Thank you.
so moving on to agenda item number 2, to approve ordinance chapter 40, conduct in public parks.
Council, this is a familiar change to our Chapter 40 ordinance, and it's the second public hearing. At the last council meeting, you approved what you saw as changes to this ordinance, and we're asking for this ordinance to be passed this evening into law.
And just like a note of process, we should open the public hearing, even though there's no public here.
So, do I ask members of the public if they wish to discuss or have comment or anything of the sort?
Go ahead, comment.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. So, moving on.
I have a question.
Yes, Harold.
So, state statute defines a safe zone as an athletic field, park, playground, or recreational facility that is designated as a safe zone by a municipality. We have listed under here Presque Isle Housing Authority and Sister Mary O'Donnell Homeless Shelter. I'm just wondering how those two entities are defined as an athletic field, park, playground, or recreational facility.
And so Harold, the definition you read, was that from main statute?
Yes.
So, I think, if I'm not mistaken, when we looked at this before, I think the answer to the question is that the state lists those other items specifically because they are not a place of residence. And so they added to it. I believe that, you know, in regards to areas that are, kind of go without saying, that are a zone that's safe is housing, especially housing that's in the community, that's supported in one way or another by the community, or
Do you know where that is in the statute? Because that's not my interpretation.
well, no, this statute adds to it, but isn't the entirety of it, I believe. So I think really what it kind of comes down to is that we're saying that we want to make sure that we denote that housing and where someone lives needs to be a zone that's safe.
Right. And I'm not necessarily opposed
No,
to
I
making
understand
those
you aren't.
entities. I just don't,
Yeah,
I don't see where it defines that.
and it probably doesn't in that exact chapter, because I think that was how it was described to us. These were addendums to it, to add to zones that were housing zones.
Yeah. Well, if you look at Presque housing, I mean, they've got that big playground right out there in the center of it.
So, safe zone as defined in main statute, and then they list the different statutes.
So Harold, in
I
Maine,
looked at it and I don't know where it talks about housing in particular.
so Harold, in Maine statute, it says, under 3253, safe zones designated by municipality. So there's a separate subsection. And then it says a municipality may designate an area of the municipality that is frequented by minors as a safe zone under Title 17A, Section 1101, Section 23. A safe zone designated pursuant to this section must be conspicuously marked by the municipality with an informational sign using wording provided by the Commissioner of Public Safety. So that's just a separate subsection that, you know, allows a municipality to designate.
I still think legally, just my interpretation, that's a little bit shaky legal ground. I wasn't here when we talked about it last time, so I'm not entirely sure what Mr. Courier had said about it, but the shelter and main housing does not seem to fit the definition of a safe zone.
Are you suggesting we remove that from
I'm
the-
suggesting that we should probably inquire about that. And just, before we approve it, make sure that it's actually in line with state law.
Okay. Did you want
Yeah.
to, would it be
So
all right if Timothy addressed you this evening?
I do have one thing to point out. Section 3 refers to safe zones as in the state law. That's been in this ordinance for quite some time. The definition of state law under Section 2 is as defined in main statute, Title 30A, Section 3253, and 17A, Section 1101, subsection 23. Also, any property for the betterment of the community that children frequent at the request or with the consent of the property owner. So we did expand the ordinance definition to include properties that are for the betterment of the community, that children frequent and at the request or with the consent of those property owners, to help with that.
And I think the intent at the last meeting is, if a property is listed as a safe zone, drug trafficking crimes have much severe penalties.
Sure.
So, I mean, I think the intent, at least from my standpoint, was to make the repercussions for that behavior in those areas that include the homeless shelter and the housing to be more serious. Which I stand by that, I think. Yeah.
So just a clarification, has the city procured the consent of the property owners for the shelter and housing authority?
Yes, I don't know that we have it in writing,
Okay.
but after the adoption of this, then we could definitely do so. I know Chief Hayes has had those conversations.
Many of them,
Yeah,
Many.
so it wouldn't be a surprise and they
No.
would be supportive. Okay.
no.
And
Does that address your concern at all, Harold?
Or
It does a little bit. I'm not entirely sure that. I do think we should probably have it double checked by legal, but
Can you clarify for me what we're double checking with legal, because this has been through legal twice and
So-
approved?
under Maine state statute, Presque Housing Authority and a homeless shelter is not defined. It doesn't qualify as a safe zone.
Okay, so are you wanting those two entities removed from this? If,
If it doesn't,
The state
I think if
doesn't
it
support it.
doesn't line up with state law, then yeah, it probably should.
and so you would not want the shelter to be considered a safe zone,
If it meets state law,
but only if it meets state law?
well, yeah.
Okay, okay, I just wanna make sure I understand so that I express it to,
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily opposed to, I'm not inherently opposed to having the shelter or main housing be safe zones. I just think if we're gonna pass an ordinance, it needs to be in compliance with state law.
right, but what you just heard though from Tim tell you that we can add to that, and we have the right to add to that, and there's language in state law that says that that's appropriate to do exactly what we've done.
That's what the ordinances are for, to add a little tweak that the city wants a little bit more
Yeah.
than what the state allows, is what an ordinance does.
So, yeah, so I think it's already been addressed in that nature from what Tim just said. Is that, can you kind of just restate that?
It's right there, under safe zone.
So it has been through legal. I've had multiple conversations with Rick about this ordinance, but I can't specifically say I asked that question.
Okay, but just restate the
So-
part that
Our
allows the inclusion.
Okay, so our definition includes this two state statutes and adds that any property for the betterment of the community that children frequent at the request of or with the consent of the property owner.
Right.
So
So-
we expanded that definition to really include almost any property that we would like to, at their request. Like, and the standard is there that it's there for the betterment of the community.
So that park that's up there behind the apartments on Carmichael Street would actually fit what you're talking about here with Presque Housing then, right?
The park itself is actually
Part of it automatically, right?
part of it, it can be a part of it through the
Yeah.
state statutes.
Well, there's
but
about
their
30 more
property
kids
is-
playing there all the time.
Yeah, their property in a whole can be included with our definition.
Mhm.
And again,
Harold, search under legislator.maine.gov, just safe zones designated by municipality. Like, if you want, it says a municipality may designate an area of the municipality that is frequented by minors as a safe zone, under Title 17A, Section 1101, subsection 23.
Right. So I guess either way, I mean, I see the housing authority part of it, but what was the reasoning behind Sister Mary O'Donnell?
it was,
it was also suggested by Chief Hayes.
it was, yeah,
Just because of the
Both of
fact
It
that
was
there's families
recommended,
there
yeah.
and kids there and,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And I wasn't here when Chief Hayes was here, so maybe this was already addressed. But what is the exact intent of, are we gonna have stakeouts near the shelter if we pass this? Like,
No.
what's the rationale, I guess, beyond?
No,
is
it's
that
to
a little more-
prohibit anybody from being around there to promote what it is that you're talking about, these, drug dealers or anything else. It's to kind of like be a little bit more harsh on that aspect of it.
So, and I'm gonna apologize ahead of time because I don't know the verbatim legal wise, but it increases it a step above the standard. So it takes it, I believe, to an aggravated charge instead of a regular charge. So there's a little bit, the violation carries a little bit more weight if they have to deal with somebody in that area. So it's a little bit more deterrent where this might be a simple civil violation, it becomes an aggravated one, it carries a little bit more weight. think is part of the intent, so.
Yeah, as the chief described it to us, really, you know, they don't have time to go and sit and stake out anything. They're reacting all over the community constantly. But if in an area where children or families are involved and illegal activity goes on and they're called to it and they arrest someone, the penalties are higher for doing that near where families and children are. And that's the intent. Yeah.
Which should help
Yeah.
to deter that type of behavior in these places.
The end user, counselor, is not to target the people who are homeless or the residents there. It is to draw a circle of protection around them.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly.
And I personally and professionally really appreciate you digging down into that ordinance because it is important. So thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or issues or anything at all with this ordinance? Do you guys see it as being fair and reasonable and legal?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we adopt it as presented.
I second.
Okay, we
I was
have,
waiting for you to finish.
That was it. Yeah. No, I was actually burping. I'm sorry.
you okay?
Yeah, I'm good, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor made by Craig
Seconded by
and
Mike.
seconded by Mike. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 6-0, motion passes. That, I believe, brings us just about to the end of this meeting. Looks like we've got a couple of announcements we could make. This would be the time to do so, I presume. So, on July 3rd, Rockin' on Riverside Summer Concert Series is going to be featuring the band Busted from 6 to 9:30 p.m. down at Riverside Park. We're going to have a fireworks show, food trucks, vendors, a beer tent, and operated by Northern Maine Brewing Company. The event's made possible by the City of Presque and the Presque Downtown Revitalization. And following the next day, on July 4th, come celebrate Independence Day weekend with the City of Presque Isle, also at Riverside Park. Dedication of Presque Isle as an All-America City, an announcement of Veterans Corridor, reading of the Declaration of Independence, the Elks' annual 4th of July barbecue, and the Best Patriotic Wear contest, the Best Apple Pie contest. This is new, I believe, the Apple Pie contest. I'm looking forward to that.
Me
I think it's
too.
going to be cool. And live music. Looks like some good weather headed our way, hopefully, and all kinds of wonderful community events taking place. I would greatly encourage any and all to get out and enjoy some of these events. Lots of people put lots of work into planning and putting on these events, and numerous volunteers and volunteer hours go into this stuff, all behind the scenes, all for all of us to enjoy. And I think it's great, and looking forward to seeing everybody out. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add?
No, just thank you all for your.
Wow, there's a motion on the
I'll
floor
second
to
that.
adjourn by Meg and seconded by Hank, and all those in favor? 6-0.
Right.